Welcome again to reviews, fixes and hacks, and what I've got today is, and it's in one of my other videos I've posted not so long ago. It's an LG washing machine and I've come to it today to do the bearings on it. So the bearings on the washing machine are basically just behind that part there, and where you can see the triangular sort of indents, that's where you have something called the spider. Now the bearings within that have gone. There's two bearings and there's a seal that sits on further this side of the tub to prevent water getting into the bearing system. Now the reasons these usually fail is either the bearing's worn out, or more often than not the seal has failed and water has penetrated into the bearings and caused damage. Now the common way to know whether there's a problem with your bearings is basically you'll get movement. As you can see, the tub's moving. All I'm doing is lifting it and the tub's moving up and down. That should not happen. Sometimes you even get it moving side to side. Okay, there you go, that's moving side to side, so you can see it. I'm pressing it and you can hear the sound. So that tub has definitely failed. Another one is, you can hear that is not free movement. A lot of clunking. That tub has certainly failed. Now it's unadvisable to use a washing machine with failed bearings as bad as this. Sometimes you would end up getting smoke coming out from the back, especially when it's on the spin mode. So if you've got it on a high sort of spin, you would end up getting smoke because of the high levels of friction, and it could be a fire hazard as well. Anyway, to remove it or to dismantle the washing machine, you do need to get the tub out. You need to remove the tub, the outer and inner tub as a whole, before you can replace the bearings. Now I've already started and I thought, you know what, better make do a video on this, and I've only dismantled a bit. You take out the washer part, just pulls out, press the conditioner. There's a conditioner part inside. You press it, pulls out. I've undone the two screws here. The screws are just fitting. There's a screw, just fits in there, undone it, and all that does is it loosens the inner part, because I do need to move that out the way. Turn off the washing machine for safety purposes from the mains, just unplug it, and then behind, just there, so this is the top. There's two screws, one on either side, so I've taken that one off, and here's the other one. Where is it? There it is. So I've taken that off, and then all I do to remove the top is push this backwards. Push it backwards and it'll just easily lift it out. Now you can see I've got some masking tape. The reason I've got masking tape is just to make sure the screws don't go ajar and I know what parts the screws come from. I put the screws on top and just masking taped it onto the lid. So the two screws underneath there are the two screws for the top. Okay, the ones I've taken off just from the back. Now to begin, just to give you an idea, I will take the lid off. I will then, using a flathead screwdriver, I will lift the spring here, and this is the retainer for the tub seal. So I will do that, and then I will push the seal into the actual drum area. That's the first part. Once I've done that, remove the tub, and then I will disconnect and take off the actual front panel, the face here, right here. Once that's off, there's some screws just beneath that, and this will then take off the front panel here. So I will take off those screws. I will drain this. There'll be some water within that system. The washing machine has been used. Take this off. If I'm correct, there's a screw there. There's a white screw there. Take that off, and this bottom fascia does unclip. So this will come off, and there'll be further screws at the bottom. I will undo that, and then this whole front will just lift up and pull out. Okay, once I've done that, the next part will be, and that will be with us shortly. Okay, as you can see, I am draining the water, that's remaining water within the actual washing machine, and as that's draining, at the same time I'm just moving the dispenser unit. Now to remove the dispenser unit, all I've done is press these two, moved the clip, retaining clip back, pulled off the pipe. This is the water that enters into the, so it's the water that enters into the tub itself. Move that back out the way and then slowly ease this out. Now, as you ease this out, this rubber part here, this is how it's held in place. All I do is undo it above and then just pull this off. So ease that connection off. Once that's off, you can see there's quite a bit of water that's actually still within the actual unit. So that water is what needs to exit. So there's quite a bit of water, muck, so I might be cleaning this out before refitting it. But anyway, once the unit's out, just push it back and, oh, there's water in there. Definitely water in that, so I need to empty that. But once it's out, just push it and leave it to a side. So push it back and leave it to a side. So I'm just gonna flip it off once I've emptied any of its remaining water within it. Okay, and then we will get started on removing the actual fascia. Now there's another good tip, which is take pictures, take all the pictures of any connections. That way you can always come back to it and you'll know exactly where the connections go. Okay, so that's another good tip. Okay, undoing the fascia. So you can see I've got just basically ties, wire ties that I'm gonna untwist if I can by hand. Seem a bit stiff with one end, but anyway, undo these and then that should loosen the cable there. Same with this. So I've got another one here, so undo that. And that will undo that, and then just behind, so I'm new to this, I've got all these connections to take off. So to do that, it is a matter of just pulling them out. So let's have a look. So I will pull out all these connections. I've already taken a picture, so I know exactly what goes where, and then I will come to removing the fascia. Okay, as you can see, I've taken the fascia off. I've taken the bottom panel off. This, no screws required, it just comes off. The fascia itself, these are the parts where it just clips in. So there's a clip that goes in. You just put a flathead screwdriver behind and push down, and it will just push out. Once it pushes out, just lift upwards and it will just pop straight back out. There's the connections, all the connections there. I've just put them to a side. Okay, next part. The next part is I need to undo 1, 2, at the bottom there is 3, 4, and there's one more, 5, just there, 5. So once I've undone those 5 Phillips screws, I will need to take this off. Now to do this, I will try one-handed. All you do is be careful not to pierce it, so you know, the blunter the better. Unfortunately, I'm using what I have, and then just lift. So just put that in. Ideally, I've used a tiny one, and one-handed it is quite difficult, but it does come off. There you go. And then just run it round, and it just comes off. So there's the retainer, and it just goes back on just as you put it off. Now, if I lift this and pull this off, you can see exactly where there's a lip there, slight lip, and this is where the retainer goes on, and you just put it on exactly as you've just taken it off, and that's that. Okay, now this, just take it off and put it inwards. So twist it twist. It's usually better with two hands, much easier. Just take it off, put it inside. Usually it does bend, like I say, because I've only got used one hand for the camera, one hand for doing this. Is a bit difficult, but anyway, it's off. The main thing is it's off. Now it's nice and easily just come out. Now all I need to do is undo. Fine, so that's one. And again, I will use masking tape and just tape it to the front, so that way I do not forget anything where the screws go. So that's that one, and then I've got two more at the bottom. In fact, I forgot to point out that it's not just these that you need to do, you will also need to disconnect. In fact, you don't even need to disconnect these. Basically, once this is up, just don't pull the cover straight up, just lift it, angle it slightly, and the cable connection for this door, will be at the rear, and just disconnect it before you take it all off. Don't yank it, purely because if you do that, you'll ruin the cable that makes the connection to the door holder. So be mindful of that. So you do not need to actually disconnect these. That's just for the door retainer. Leave those as they are in situ. Just connect the cabling behind. Did the screws here. Bit difficult to see. There they are. So there's one. I think that's loose. There's another one. Just there. That's loose. Oh, it's fallen. See if that's come off. I'll just take it off before I keep it safe. And the final one, which is just there. That's 1, 2, 3. Now let me just take these off. Come on, get off. Oh, that's fallen somewhere. I'll find it in a minute. Then I've got this. All the way to go on with this. Now it's just up, so as you can see, push up, and there's your connection. So this connection, now before you remove anything, just pull this connection out. Now to do that, there's a clip just behind the other side, and I will need to unclip it before I can take this out. But once I've done that, the front panel's removed, and we will look at taking off the weights. Okay, all I've done at the moment is I've disconnected one of the damper arms. There's the damper arm, and these are held in by a clip or a screw, which is, I wouldn't even call it a screw. It's one of these sorts of clip ends, and that is just pushed in through the arm, just like so. And what you do is you get a pair of pliers and you squeeze this end, which is on the rear end, and then I've got a pair of grips like so, and then I've pulled this side out, twisting as I'm pulling, using one of these, and that's it. So squeeze this end with a pair of pliers that squeezes the clip in, and then you pull using one of these. Okay, here we are at the back of the machine. Now, I don't have a lot of space to maneuver, but to remove the back, and the key part is the motor. And now, being an LG, this is a direct drive machine, and it's slightly more complicated than your normal belt and motor type of washing machines. But anyway, the back panel is quite simple. You undo the screws, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws at the back, and the panel just pops out. Basically, you lift and pull out from the bottom. So you just lift the panel once you've taken the 4 screws off and pull out from the bottom, and then we get access to the motor, and it's a matter of dismantling the motor. So, removing the back cover, we expose the direct drive motor, and that's the direct drive motor. Now, before we go ahead, like I've said before, it's always a good idea to take pictures of any connections, and as you can see, there are connections on this actual machine, and these are connections to the electrical heater. So that's the electrical heater part element. Let me see if I can get this any better to zoom in. So there's the electrical heater. So back connection is off. So back cover is all taken apart. That's the direct drive motor. There you go. And like I say, it's always worth taking pictures of all your connections, and you got a fair few there, fair few connections. There's a connection to the motor, and as you can see, that is definitely a water leak, rusted water. That means the bearings are totally shot as suspected. So take a picture of your connections. This is your heater element. So this is the heater element. Take a picture of all these, dismantle them, undo all the connections, and then you're ready to start unbolting the actual direct drive motor. Now, as you can see, I have taken the main bolt off. So this was a bolt that was connected there, 17mm socket, and just undid that. This does spin the drum. It's connected directly to the drum, so you'll have to hold the drum or hold it here somewhere while you undo this, otherwise the whole drum will spin. But anyway, let me undo the connections, and then I'll get back to how we take off the motor. So I've just taken this off. This is the magnetic cover. So you got permanent magnets going all the way around. Now I've just cleaned this off with a toothbrush. So I've just basically sweeped it with a toothbrush and just cleared all the glove off it. Now, as you can see, the bearing has totally and utterly disintegrated. So this is definitely not a good thing. So let me just try and get a better angle of it. As you can see there, totally and utterly gone. So bearing's definitely shot. Now I will cover another video where I go through the actual bearings. Now this bearing here, I bought it as part of a kit, and it was a Chinese made bearing. If I remember correctly, I think the company was called LZMH or something of the like. When I googled it, it was definitely a Chinese manufacturer. There's 2 bearings. This is the outer bearing. There's another bearing on the other side which is called the inner bearing, and that one, the inner one, was SKF. I've heard of them, I'm aware. They're definitely a good manufacturer, good quality bearing. The Chinese one, I think this is the one that's caused me the issue here. But anyway, to take this off, you got bolts. So this is to take the motor stator off. So this is the one with the coils. The coils get an electrical current flowing through it. This, when you've got the magnetic disc around it, this is what makes this act as a motor, and it will spin. So this is the way the system works. But this is the cover. This was ZZ bearing. ZZ bearing means they've got shields on both sides, and clearly that shield has just fallen off. So 100% not good. Anyway, let me have a look at the size of this. Yep, 10mm. socket, 10mm socket. Don't know if you can see that. There it is, 10mm. So take this off. I will clean this up with, again, a toothbrush. Do not use a steel wire brush or brass wire brush or anything that is abrasive. Just simply toothbrush or a broom or something like that. Clean it off. You can use electrical contact cleaner just to give it a good thorough cleaning. And once you've taken that off, it's going to be a matter of taking the drum out and then starting on the bearing replacement. Lift it out. Sorry about the music, that's my daughter watching Shrek. But tub lifted out now, all I need to do is 10mm again. So the only sockets I've used is 10 and 17. So what I need to do is undo all of these, and then the two halves of the tub will separate. Once I get to that stage, I can remove the inner drum, and then it's time to remove the bearing. Now, I don't know if this is a better view, but there is the bearing. It's totally disintegrated. Not a very good sight indeed. Rust spots all over the place. That's the heating element. So let's get this baby out. To separate the inner drum for the outer drum. So there's the inner drum at the bottom. This is the outer drum. To separate it, all I've done is put some, I've tried WD-40, so I've put it around the edge. WD-40 is not possibly the best rust penetrator. So I don't know if you've heard of something called Plus Gas. I'll do a separate review on that. But applying Plus Gas and leaving it for about 10 minutes has seemed to have helped, and all I've done is angled it slightly, resting on my leg, and bashed it with a rubber mallet, and that has separated the outer drum from the inner drum. And now it's onto the bearings. So as you can see, I'm able to lift the outer drum from the inner one. So off to bearing replacement. Okay, now just turn it upside down just to remove the seal. So this is the bearing seal. Just underneath that you will have the outer seal. Now just to remove it, oh, that's already a bit loose. There it is. So there's the bearing seal, not very nice, and there's our culprit. Snap bearings. That looks like it's partly snap. That's definitely half a bearing. So the seal's actually totally gone. Yeah, definitely time to change the bearings. As you can see, the outer racer I've managed to knock out, and to knock it out all I've used is a hammer. Used a hammer and a socket extension bar, and it's just a matter of putting it inside. So to knock out the inner one, put it inside, angle it slightly, and then just bang away. And it does require a lot of force, especially if it's in this sort of condition. So I mean, this one was an SKF, and clearly, I mean, naturally it would get damaged. Doesn't matter how good the bearings are, once water penetration occurs, it will rust up. But the condition of this one is much better than the condition of the inner bearing, because with the inner bearing, the issue I have encountered is that on a bearing, this part is the outer racer, this is the inner racer. Now with the inner bearing, and I'll show you in a minute, all I've done is I've got this over a bin and just start banging away at it using the socket extension and the hammer, and turned it upside down, banged away the outer racer, well, the outer bearing, the whole lot came out. Having the tub in this direction and angling the socket, banged away, and the inner racer has well, when I say the inner racer, the inner bearing the outer eraser is still stuck in the tub, and the inner eraser has totally broken apart and fallen into the bin. So the job I've got now is that I need to get the inner eraser out, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's the inner eraser. So the inner eraser is just, let me get a screwdriver and point it out. The inner eraser is just there. So all I need to do is, there's the inner eraser just there. Don't know if you can see it. There's a groove. So there's a groove of the inner eraser. So I need to angle it in each direction. I've soaked it in Plus Gas. I think personal experience for me is that this stuff is probably much better at loosening rusty parts compared to well, WD-40 or anything else I've tried. So what I've done is sprayed this up with Plus Gas, and I'll be doing a bit more now from this side and just leaving it to soak. So there it is. So let's try and get enough of this on. Like I said, I've got it just on top of a bin so that it's, there you go. So hopefully, if anything, continue to tap away using a screwdriver this time, and hopefully I can get the inner eraser out, this whole area cleaned up, ready for the new bearings to go in. Replacement. So we're on the part where we will be I've taken the bearings out, as you can see, hammering away using, damaged one of my extension sockets, but edging it around, real brute force, and just hammered away. If the outer eraser does break off, then what I suggest is using a strong flathead screwdriver and then just smacking it out using that. What you can see is what you will now require in order to do your bearing change. So you need the outer seal, or the seal for the bearings, that just goes on top of there. The larger of the two bearings, this will go on top. The inner, the smaller bearing goes on the rear end, so I'll have to turn the top over and do that now. As you can see, I've got two types of silicone greases. Okay, this is a high tack or high temperature silicone grease. This is what I will smear along the inside, and as you can see, there is the silver part there. That is basically a retaining spring, so that compresses this so it gets a firm fit along the drum shaft. So I'll be smearing some high-tech grease along the edges of that, and then some standard silicone grease along the edges or the outer edge here. You can see this is slightly grooved, so it should give it a better grip and seal once it's fitted in. Also on the bearings, just get one of those out. So also on the bearings, what I will be doing is smearing some of the standard grease, not the high-tech one, some standard grease along the outer edge, so it gives a bit of lubrication, so when I'm putting it in and then hammering it down, it should fit slightly better. So I think I might have made an error when I mentioned the larger one goes in here. It is the smaller bearing that goes here, the larger one goes on the rear end. So as I say, once I've done that, I'll apply a little bit of grease onto the outer edge, place it on top, and then using, and I highly recommend this, using one of these, you need to start tapping on the outer race. Whatever you do not tap on that midsection or the inner part. That will damage the bearing in its entirety. So you tap gently, so you place it in, and then you're tapping gently on the outer edge, okay? And do it evenly, so tap here, tap there, tap there, tap there, and then come back and keep going around in that full motion. It does require quite a bit of force, so I wouldn't get worried it's not going in. You just need to apply more force using a decent mallet or hammer. You might want to use a rubber one, but I'm going to use this because I know it requires a lot of force. I've done it before and it's not as simple and straightforward as just tapping. You have to really hammer at it. But anyway, I'm gonna get started. Once I've done that, here's another tip: get some high-tack grease, and then you lube this part here, because this acts as a very good water repellent. So if the seal does fail, by using this, it'll give you another 6-month service. If not, what you can do is, without damaging the bearings, you could actually take the tub apart and just change the seal. So just bear that in mind. The reason I'm using silicone grease and not lithium or calcium, bear this in mind, it must be silicone, because silicone is rubber friendly. It's not mineral based, so it would not degrade this sort of oil seal or any liquid seal, or your washing machine seal for that matter. So make sure you use silicone grease. Okay, nothing else. Anything else, just expect you're going to need to do this job again within 6 months. So using lithium or calcium based greases, or just general multi-purpose grease, or even Vaseline for that matter, expect that you'll be doing this job again in about 6 months time, purely because the seal will degrade. Okay, as you can see, the bearing is in, and I have just done exactly as I have stated, which is hammered it in using the small extension bar. And you'll hear a metal to metal contact. That's when you know it's in place, and then just move around and just see that it's evenly against that lip. More or less all drums are exactly the same. As long as you can separate it, you should be able to change the bearings on it. And what I've done is, using my high-tack silicone, I've just gone over and smeared a thin layer across all of it, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the rear. And the whole purpose of doing that is so if the seal does fail, it just gives you know, a matter of an extra few months where the bearings will still be watertight, because the high-tack seal will act as a water barrier, and it's very good against water, very water resistant and water repellent, and detergent, if it does get through, does not affect it as quickly as well. So what I need to do is do exactly the same to the rear end of the drum with the smaller bearing. So here's a smaller one, so I'll be doing exactly the same, and then it's a matter of putting the machine back together. Here we have the outer bearing, so the smaller one's just on the outside. Again, just using my socket and hammer, so extension bar, sorry, and hammer, socket extension bar and hammer. I've just again gone around the edges and evenly tapped on either end, so top, bottom, right, left, and kept going. It's now smooth and flush, and then I've just applied around the whole bearing area, apart from the inside. Along the whole bearing area, I've just applied some HT silicone grease. This is where the drum shaft would sit, so just getting rid of any grease that might be lingering in there. I've done my best to avoid any grease going into that area, and now it's a matter of putting the drum back together, all in reverse order. Now once you put it back together, that's it. That's how you change your bearing. Anyway, please like and subscribe, and keep an eye out for future videos. And just on a side note, just to mention, in one of my earlier videos I did mention bearings and the C3 designation. Now C3, all it means is that there is a little bit of free play. It's ever so small. You will not be able to distinguish or identify that play with your fingers compared to a normal a C2 bearing. C2 is your normal. C1, C0 is very tight fit. If it isn't marked, it's just normal. C4 is much looser than C3, but generally motors require a bit of free play, but like I say, look, you can't see it there, but they require ever so little bit of free play. And as they're spinning, if you've got a high 1600 spin RPM spin washing machine, then there is heat that builds up, causes the bearings, the ball bearings to expand, and that is perhaps the main reason why you require slightly looser fitting bearings so that there's room for expansion. Anyway, take care, and like I said, please like and subscribe and keep an eye out for future videos. Here's a final repair of the machine with the bearings changed. Now, in one of my videos I did show how you can check whether your bearings are in need of replacement, and one of the symptoms were, well, the main symptom was it'll move up and down. Now I'm pushing up and there's no movement up or down, so the bearings are bang on. And spinning it, when I did it last time on the other video, you could actually hear the sound of the bearings clattering. That's as smooth as anything. In fact, Timken bearings are much better than the bearings I'd installed last time. In fact, that's going to be super quiet. But anyway, time to give you a spin. Okay, take care, like, subscribe, bye.